Is the Cultist of Slaanesh dedicated in Tides of Torment? Well, this seems something of a lifelong commitment, or else they give you weird titles like the Faithless, right? Let us more closely examine the wages of sin, and see how the pay compares. Recruited for 1000 gold and 250 upkeep, that part being pretty normal. On Ultra, they come on foot at 3688 health. Armor is a mere 25, with physical resistance 20%, and no missile resistance inherent. Leadership of 65 isn't that good, speed 44 and charge speed 52 is up to skink levels of agility. Melee attack begins at a mere 40, attack interval 4 seconds between animations, large splash target size till trolls thereabouts, max target damage of 4. Interesting. Let me be clear, this is an anti-infantry hero. It is highly unusual for her to have a splash target size of large. Melee defense of 55 is therefore comparatively strong. Weapon strength 400, respectable in itself, is split base 280, and armor piercing 120, a fairly pathetic ratio for armor bashing. That's still a lot of total damage, mind. There is a bonus versus infantry of 25, which is rather high, charge bonus of 30, and mass of 600. In line with Slaanesh characters generally, she has Strider for no inconvenience running up hills or dueling in shallow water, immunity to psychology, which means fear and terror effects, not morale debuffs generally, and devastating flanker for better charges, from the flank or rear. On a Chaos Steed, upkeep does not climb. Health does, to 4096, armor to 55. Speed 83 and charge speed 113 are nice. The rest checks out until we get to charge bonus 45 and mass 1000. Well, that's why it's listed as. On a War Shrine, and my usual advice about being a huge target and wanting immortal heroes on them still applies. Upkeep goes up to 300, health shoots up to 11,250, armor is only 60, now physical resistance is 5%, but missile resistance 15%. Considering it's a War Shrine, speed 43 and charge speed 55 are impressive. Melee attack drops slightly to 35 base, but carries Soporific Musk for -5 melee attack and defense to enemies in melee, provided they are not immune to contact effects. Attack interval 4 seconds, splash target size very large, max targets damaged is 4. Melee defense drops to 30, a big nerf. Weapon strength 375 is still pretty good, split base 250 and AP 125, but no bonus versus infantry. Charge bonus is 25, and mass is 4000. Aside from giving plus 10 leadership in a 35-meter bubble, this has an increasingly powerful Mortis engine effect within 35 meters, ramping up with nearby entity deaths, so the mosh pit is where it wants to be. The max level is higher than a usual Mortis engine, but others tend not to have this kind of ramp-up condition, so there. As an embedded hero, she provides increased mobility, hugely helpful. She has Spread Corruption as her map passive, and while Wound and Hinder Replenishment are available as standard actions, she can purposefully establish a cult like a Vampire Fleet Captain can establish a Pirate Cove. Specialist reduces the cost of the other actions. Establish Cult Pips reduce the cost of that action. For free, she gets Hates Khorne for plus 10 melee attack and plus 15 weapon strength against Khorne factions, because they're not fun. At rank 7, she can get Supple and Spry for plus 10% missile resistance. At rank 13, she can start taking Gate of Slaanesh pips, each one enabling ace summons of demonettes without buffs, 120-second cooldown, but you need to be in melee for this cooldown to begin, and you start with 0. Greater Gate enables a single summons of a Keeper of Secrets, but that can be powerful. The combat line begins with 1 pip in Rapid Ruination for plus 12% speed. Devastating Charge for plus 30 flat charge bonus at 3 pips becomes critically important to squeezing more out of Devastating Flanker. Thick-Skinned is plus 15 armor at 3, and she doesn't get a lot. Hard to Hit is plus 12 melee defense at 3, Deadly Blade plus 12 melee attack at 3, but the midway pip is not Foe Seeker, it's Slippery for plus 24 melee defense and plus 25% speed for 25 seconds, 60-second cooldown. Some heroes get this as a capstone. It's good. Woundmaker is plus 20% weapon strength at 3, Scarred Veteran plus 15% health at 3, Indomitable plus 12 leadership at 3, Blade Shield plus 12 melee defense at 3, and the capstone is Deadly Onslaught for plus 25% more weapon strength and plus 60% more charge bonus, 90-second cooldown, 31-second duration. and that's really good when you're trying to maximize Devastating Flanker. So now we go into the personal line, so to speak, unlocking at rank 10. Mistress of Disciples makes a Disciple army summons plus 25% in size, gives all buildings in local region income plus 6%, and gives enemies in local province leadership -3, not requiring being in the same region or even being in an army. The Sweetness of Steel gives the Cultist armor plus 20 and bonus versus infantry plus 10. I cannot overstate how badly this was needed, and how the Cultist feels incomplete without the extra armor, and more bonus versus infantry helps a ton when she's on the War Shrine and otherwise would not have any. Behind Adoring Eyes adds plus 5% to the increased army mobility she brings, adds plus 10% to hero action success chance, and campaign line of sight goes up plus 50%. The mobility is perhaps the most badly wanted, but it's all good. Bend the Mind, Bend the Flesh gives her, personally, speed plus 10%, speed plus 6% for all non-demonic units in her army, therefore of particular importance, for T'Challa, and gives -33% cooldown to the gate abilities for demonic summoning. This one is level gated at rank 15, but not a big deal. On that note, how do we use the Cultist of Slaanesh? Let's go over the end of the combat line. Deadly Onslaught is what makes your eyes light up on a relatively low charge bonus character with Devastating Flanker. So, the play is to enhance charge bonus, and by the way, armor 2 I think, and then have Deadly Onslaught popping off just before you slam into the enemy. You use Slippery either on the way in or after the charge bonus decays, so you can get out again more safely. That's the tactical stuff. I began this video partly because I knew I had not covered them, and the cult system has changed on us anyway, so strategic uses, while obvious, are still important to note, but I've begun T'Challa research finally, and I just recruited one and had no idea how to use her besides increasing the mobility of the force, which is still very important. Using her as a lightweight melee tar pit and assistant to the infantry is absolutely fine while she's on foot. Using her as a character assassin on Steed isn't bad either, partly because she's a little less likely to knock them down without that being productive, and T'Challa does that a lot. But oh well. The gist being, they're essential strategically, they're competent tactically, but as they bring no magic, that means less micro, and more emphasis on putting them in the right places to begin with. This also means your options for increasing survivability are low aside from just plain slapping better items on them. Well, T'Challa gets lots of tribute, so I should manage in her campaign. Take care, and have fun accepting help freely offered from your mortal minions. You don't even have to volunteer them. How convenient.